We have initiated first contact, everyone. How is everyone?
Good.
Sunburned.
Sunburned, that's right. I see you've been playing, what is that game with it? You play with the ball?
No, far from playing. No.
Or watching.
There's a place for guys like me on the sideline. We watch the kids.
There you go. That's awesome. That's cool. So
my old enemy was out there as well, the sun.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty funny. That is hilarious. Who's in the comics? Mr. Dale Erdman, thank you very much for joining us. So we are going to start in a second. Chantel, it's good to see you. I'm going to call you Shanti.
Yes, thank you. Please.
Brad, I'm just going to call you the butt to my scuttle, as I usually do. So I'm sure that works. We are going to be doing our record. Oh, Shanti, what did I tell you?
What?
He wants to leave the room.
Oh, no. You called it.
Hold on a second. My cat has been sitting peacefully next to me for the last 22 minutes, and now he wants to leave. Hold on.
No. I thought you were talking about Dale. I mean, damn. I mean, I understand, but we didn't even start yet.
All right.
I understand, but
I hear some YouTube feedback.
Yeah, that's creepy. Can you not do that?
So, thank you everyone in the chat. Who's in the chat? Let's see. I'm gonna come over here.
Dale, and even more Dale.
And then even more Dale. So, thank you very much for joining us. Let's see here. Right, excellent. So, let's get this party started right after this.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
What's up, everybody? Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Scarif Scuttlebutt Live. We are recording tonight our episode 64. Is it 64? Yes, it is. 64 scary and spooky stories. How is Team Scarif? Chantel, how you doing?
Good.
Just good? I mean...
Yeah, it's been a boring, lazy day today.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
It's getting hotter in Miami, so...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It was a little chilly in Chicago. I worked today, but then came home, did a little yard work, and it was like in the 40s.
Oh, lucky.
And just Brad, how's it going, my friend?
Besides the aforementioned sunburn, it's going good. It's beautiful here in Charleston. I expect you to throw in a "When I'm 64" by the Beatles. Throw a clip in there somewhere in the show. We finally get to 64.
Excellent. Yeah, that's right, 64. So this is really cool. I want to give a quick reminder, folks. Last week, Chantel and Frank, one of our new patrons, the Frank402 on Twitter, did a fantastic job carrying the show for us. You guys talked about curses in movies, and really great subject, really great topic, and it scared the bejesus out of me. Which and speaking of Frank, here is Frank in the chat. Frank, how you doing? Just talking about you. Your ears were ringing,
Frank.
weren't they? But yeah, you guys did a great show. and like I said, it scared the bejesus out of me. I think I wanted to continue to kind of have that scary feeling, that feeling of the jump scares that we got while you guys were talking about curses on The Omen, Twilight Zone, movies like that. Just fun movies that kind of make you kind of want to turn off the lights and go under the covers. But Brad, how about you? Are you into like scary movies?
Yeah, and that'll be another episode of the Scare of Scuttlebutt that I can actually listen to, since I can't listen to the rest of them. Yeah, I was excited when you guys pitched this idea for horror, but then I started to question myself. Bro, I texted you like, there's some connoisseurs of this genre, and I never know whether the movies I've seen are scary enough to count as horror movies. One thing I hope we could maybe tackle right off the bat is there a definition of a horror movie, or if it just, as you said, scares the bejesus out of you, does that count as a horror movie? Perhaps I'm overthinking it, but
You overthinking something? No.
it happens sometimes.
But there is kind of like a subcategory. I mean, you got thrillers, which are somewhere in there, but you got like the slasher movies. You've got the haunted house movies that are very scary in their own right. But I think for the most part, when folks kind of think of horror, they think of Freddy Krueger and Friday the 13th, and a little bit here and there, those slasher movies from the 80s that we love so much. But yeah, I mean, getting back to the origin of horror, and I know there's a little bit of a crisscross here. Mary Shelley has always been considered I guess the world's first science fiction writer. Obviously, it has a little bit of horror connotations with her story of Frankenstein, the Frankenstein monster. So, like I said, there's a little bit of a crossover point at that point, but. You guys are familiar, obviously, with Frankenstein, and Mary Shelley is an author. But those are some of the origins of that genre, and then obviously all the way from now. But what do you guys think? And I didn't do the research real fast, but Frankenstein was written in. Let's see. I'm not really sure, but and obviously it's one of those things that. Was kind of a taboo subject back in the day, and you got somebody talking about body parts and reanimation and things like that. A little bit of the occult kind of thrown in there, which we'll definitely talk about that subject as well. But it's exhilarating. What do you guys think of scary movies, especially in the theater? You're in the dark already, so you're the stage is set. What do you guys think about scary movies? Do they actually work? Are you guys really susceptible to jump scares when you're watching these movies? Chantel, what do you think?
Especially in the theater. In fact, I used to have a rule that if there was a horror movie that I really wanted to see in the theater, I'd have to watch it as early in the day as possible, and then come home.
That's no fun.
Slap on a Disney movie. And then go from there, because it messes with you. It's the darkness. It's all you're focused on. The music is really loud, which really is like what gets you on edge. So yeah, it's a much different experience than watching at home.
That's funny. Although at home, you can have a little bit more control over, what light you leave a light on in the hallway. Make sure that you see your windows, cover your mirrors back there. What about you, Brad? What's the last movie you went to go see that scared you?
Well, I'll get back to that. As far as being, likely to be jump scared, mentioned overthinking, and I tend to do that. Like I can't a lot of times turn my brain off enough during a movie where the whole time I'm just trying to predict what's going to happen next. So like I can predict a lot of jump scares, so I don't get it. But this may sound weird, and I don't think you can even consider this movie in this genre. But the last movie to make me jump scare, and somebody posted this on Twitter the other day too, and it still gets me too, is the damn alien from the movie Signs. When they had that video, I think the party was down in Mexico City or somewhere. They were showing on the news clip.
Footage, yeah.
Yeah, the footage, and just the alien that walked by so quickly on there. That I think that'll still. I mean, I know it's coming, and for whatever reason, that'll still make me jump. I don't know what it is about that. I think it's just the authentic look of that footage, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about those authentic looking, homemade movie type deals. But yeah, that one still makes me jump scare. But a lot of the exorcism type movies and the Conjuring, that sort of thing. If I'm gonna jump scare, it's gonna be to one of those movies.
That's funny. And there is and I don't know if it's fake or not. There is a YouTube video, and you guys can search on YouTube for, I think it's called Sewer Monster Video. And apparently I don't know, somewhere in Europe or somewhere out there was a crew that were they were doing
those are
some
all
sort
fake,
of
man.
I love those, but still you gotta look at them.
They're just chilling.
Well
They're just like, oh my God, look over there, man. That's
yeah.
Come on, Ro. I know you don't.
Those are great. I love those. And I know they're fake, but they're well done. So you have this. I'll explain it real fast. You have this construction crew that's got like this worm camera that it's surveying like some sewers underground, and way in the distance down the corridor you can see like these like two eyes that kind of pop up over and then come back in, and then the camera kind of goes in, and then you definitely can see like the form of this creature, very similar to the creature that you were just talking about, but then it kind of looks at the camera, looks at the light, and then it just zips away. It's really cool. So I as far as like not sleeping at night, when I am scrolling through YouTube, those are the types of YouTube videos that keep me up at night, definitely. So when you guys think about, early horror, we talk about movies like Nosferatu, which as a little kid, the image of that big-headed, Dracula figure with the ears, I mean, that like really freaked me out as a kid. And the fact that it was in black and white was even more so. It went that extra mile. But do you guys have any early memories of some maybe early actors that lended their talents to the horror genre?
Oh yeah, I mean, going back to Mary Shelley, I remember as far back as middle school as that being maybe one of the first of that genre of books that I read. It was more a condensed version because of the age that I was, but I remember just being very struck by the image of Frankenstein on front of the book. And my grandfather, who unfortunately just recently passed away, when I was younger, which I'll show, he actually gifted me this VHS tape of Frankenstein, and I've had it ever since. So to me, Boris Karloff is a huge, huge deal for me in the horror genre. Oh my God, between that and the original Mummy, I mean, for me, he's it. So that's my first impression of horror, was always Frankenstein, always.
I hate to. No, I don't hate it at all. Take this back to Star Wars, but Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, the fact that they cross paths so early on in their careers, and just the amount of character that they put into those characters, with Van Helsing, that was amazing. But as far as my earliest, I'm gonna have to go with Vincent Price. Ro, I don't know if you remember this, and it used to be like Saturday nights he would come on. I don't remember the name of the show. It was like something like Monster Theater or something like that. It was.
Wasn't it Creature Feature?
It could have been. This was these are some of my earliest memories, and just his voice. Like I could listen if Vincent Price narrated the dictionary. I would be a genius. I would know every word out there because I mean it, and you know, just sitting. I can still see him sitting in that old chair that he had with his legs crossed and just reading. Like he put so much into it, and he was such a good person as well on the outside. But you know, and still hearing the song Thriller and
Yeah. Yes.
Vincent Price reading that poem at the end. That I
Mm.
mean, that's a badass song, but that's my favorite part of the whole thing is just hearing Vincent Price at the end of it and lending his voice to it. But there's other things you can find out there on YouTube that Vincent Price narrated, and you know, seeing that, you know, I'm sure you've seen that picture online with. Um, you know, it's got Vincent Price, Christopher Lee,
Grand Moff
and
Tarkin.
Mhm.
yeah, so Peter Cushing,
Yeah.
and I want to say there's one more person in the picture, but just the coolest picture you'll ever see. Those were some of the titans of this field. It doesn't get any better than that.
Absolutely. You know, and Frank just mentioned, you know, some other actors, Anthony Perkins, Bela Lugosi, obviously from back in the day,
Mhm.
Lon Chaney, you know, Boris Karloff, as you mentioned. You know, these are all pioneers. I would love to have been alive during that, or in the industry even during that period, because, you know, some of the stuff that they did, you know, Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney, you know, from a makeup standpoint, I mean, they transformed, and Lon Chaney did all his own makeup and all that stuff, but, you know, they did so much work on their own to transform themselves into these wonderful characters, and it was groundbreaking at the time. You know, no one movies had not seen that sort of thing, so it was really great. And obviously, you know, horror makeup has come a long way from the days of, you know, fake blood and retractable knives. But it's really fantastic. It's really great to see, to have been able to see that firsthand. So I love it. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, let's get back to the psychology of being scared. I think, you know, horror movies sometimes get a bad rap, but I think they you know, very similar to a roller coaster ride where you go up and you get this, you know, thrilling feeling of being, you know, dropped or weightlessness or all that sort of thing. But, you know, it really plays on your emotions, being able to, you know, to get scared. And you know, movies do that in such a controlled and safe way, but it's still a lot of fun, I think, to get scared in movies because, you know, you are in a controlled, you know, environment. You know what's coming. You kind of know what's coming around the corner. And it's always like, if you see people going to a horror movie and you see them, you know, do jump scares and stuff like that, afterwards you see them like kind of laugh, and it's kind of like a nervous laugh. And it's, you know, especially in a group setting, you see that it's, you know, I don't know why people laugh. I think it's like, you know,
It's a way to alleviate.
yeah, I guess it's
Hmm.
a way to alleviate, and you know that you're safe, but you still react to these jump scares, and I think it's kind of a funny thing. But you know, there's also a difference, and Chantel, you and Frank talked about it last week on the episode 63. You know, the difference between the two types of these scary movies. You've got like the Jasons and the Michael Myers, but you also have movies like The Omen and Poltergeist. What's
The Exorcist.
The
Anything
Exorcist?
having to do with possession essentially is always a little scarier than the
Yeah,
slasher films to
and
me.
obviously, why is that? You touched on a little bit about it regarding the fact that, you know, the movies about the occult are obviously like based in like real stuff,
Hmm.
and like a Jason Voorhees or you know, Michael Myers, you know, you can kind of like, he's like right there, and you can kind of, you know, kill him. But with this other stuff, the scariness of the occult, you know, it's like stuff you don't understand. It's like otherworldly. It's a different kind of scare. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, listen, I think we're all pretty much about, our personal space and stuff like that. And to me, that thought of that it's something that's out of my control that has the ability to invade your body or your mind. Like that's the thing to me that's always been like to not have any control over that. That is just like the scariest thing that I can think of, honestly.
I talked to you about this earlier, Ro, but the I was actually out to sea when I saw the exorcism of Emily Rose
Mm.
the first time, And I watched the whole thing, and it's a pretty freaky movie. And then you get to the end, and it's at the end where it says this movie was based on actual events, and I'm
Yeah.
like, WTF? What's up with that? Like, no way. And I was, by the time I got, I'm like, if because obviously guys on a submarine, they love to screw with other guys on a submarine. And that movie was all about, what was it, 3:00 in the morning or 4:00 in the morning, whatever it was, whatever the devil's hour was. I said, if any of you assholes comes and tries to wake me up at 4:00, I'm going to kill you. So stay away from me tonight. But I think it's just that much freakier to know that, same with The Conjuring, these are based off on reported events, I think is what they say, something along those lines. Knowing that it's possible that it happened in real life just adds that much more to it. Like, just in your mind, like, how could this actually happen in real life? So I think that just adds another element to the scariness of the movie.
And I do think there is do think there is also a religious aspect. I was raised Catholic, so I think that also plays into it as well. You know what I mean? So even if I don't necessarily believe it, there's still that little voice in the back of my mind, like, don't screw with this stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Growing up religious, you've got the stage set already. Your brain goes to the ultimate battle, between good and evil. So when you see these movies and you hear these stories, you're like, well, yeah, that's what's happening here. And, as Frank says in the chat, based on true events, just scares the crap out of you. But growing up, some of the films that I grew up with, Friday the 13th, Halloween, I just posted Christine, another Stephen King. There's some authors and some filmmakers that are really, that horror is their jam. John Carpenter, Wes Craven's. Nicole wanted us to talk a little bit about, the master of them all, sorry. Alfred Hitchcock.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very dramatic pause.
It was a very, very dramatic pause.
If it was going to be
you had everybody
but
listening.
Hitchcock, like, this better be Alfred Hitchcock after all this. I was like,
I'll add some dramatic
What a
build up music on there. But yeah,
let's go out to the lobby.
Yes, perfect, Brad.
But definitely, like I said, what are some of the filmmakers that you look for when it comes to horror?
I would say Alfred Hitchcock, and he's probably the one that I've seen. And yeah, Stephen King, but Alfred Hitchcock. I've seen Vertigo, I've seen Psycho, I've seen The Birds, the Rear Window. Even if you want to, that's not really horror, but that's a little more, I guess, suspenseful, thrillerish. But Alfred Hitchcock would be the one for me.
And obviously there were stories about, Alfred Hitchcock would tell theater owners not to let people in if they got there late.
Correct.
They wanted to make sure that, a movie like Psycho was, experienced from beginning to end. And I think that's kind of cool. I mean, you're presenting this, really great, movie and the story. And, for Hitchcock to do that, I think, one, it kind of solidified his name in the record books, but it's kind of cool to have a director do that. But yeah, that's pretty cool. What about movies that have like items possessed? We talked about Christine, which was a 58 Plymouth that had a spirit embedded in and went around on a killing spree. My friend Kane Rich and I grew up on movies like that, and we loved Christine, John Carpenter, Freddy Krueger. But talk about Nightmare on Elm Street. That's another one of our favorites. But what do you think about movies like that where things are possessed? Does that kind of strike more horror in you, even more so?
I think you failed to mention a big one, which was Chucky.
Oh, yes.
I mean, within the last year or so, went back and rewatched. I can't believe I watched that as a kid. I'm like, that's not something you should see when you're young. I'm like, holy, Ro, we've talked about this before. Like, in Chantal, I think we even on maybe that first episode, with you, we talked about stuff that got away with in the '80s that you couldn't get away with now. Like, uh, stuff we would show our kids back then, or our parents would
Yes.
show us back then. Holy crap. But that was straight evil right there. But it's always strange, when it's an inanimate object and suddenly they go on a killing spree. That can range either from just funny, highly entertaining to scare the hell out of you, depending on what the case may be.
Yeah, and Frank mentioned Annabelle. That is part of the Conjuring
Conjuring,
series, right? Those are really, really great films.
Yeah, that doesn't do it for me. I don't know why.
The Chucky.
Inanimate object kind of stuff, like the Annabelle and Chucky, I always found to be more on the comedic
yeah.
side of horror, so I can't take it too seriously. Although
That's
I love
hilarious.
Brad Dourif as Chucky. That's always great.
What do you guys think of the the slasher films of the '80s? I think one of those would you be able to make a slasher movie in the style of the '80s today? Do you think?
I don't see why not, especially because there seems to be in this newer generation of kids and teenagers, they seem to be really fascinated with the 80s all of a sudden. So I think they actually might like that. It wasn't a slasher film, but there was a movie called It Follows that was done a couple years ago that was kind of in that fashion of kind of 80s, the whole if you don't stay a virgin kind of thing, something's going to come after you. That was a very, very good movie. And that to me felt like a callback to the 80s, even though it wasn't a slasher film.
There's a lot of teen like sexual tension in those movies in the '80s. The horror, you've got the Jason movies, Camp Crystal Lake. You got teenagers in Heat, on Safari. So one of them, they start getting picked off one at a time. So yeah,
is that the name of a movie? Teenagers in Heat on a Safari? They don't name them like that anymore.
Yeah, I'm casting. So if anybody's interested.
And Halloween was the same way.
Yeah. Definitely Halloween.
I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is she's the only one that survives because she's the goody.
And she was, didn't MTV queen her or crown her the Queen of Scream a couple of years ago?
Yep.
God bless her soul.
Strange way to teach morals.
Yeah, right. The problem with slasher movies and maybe this genre in general is how desensitized humans have become to all stimuli, just because we are bombarded nearly 24/7 with stimulus, either from TV, via Netflix, Amazon, whatever the case may be, and your phone, and the images that you see all day on that. I mean, people get away with posting videos of people actually dying on Facebook and Twitter, and people's morbid curiosity, they'll click on it and they'll watch somebody die, for real. So how does a fictional movie contend with that? And that's, to me, that's how you end up with movies like the Saw, however many movies they've made of Saw nowadays, where these movies have to get more and more extreme, just because if you're going to get any kind of reaction from the crowd, it's got to be more than what they're normally used to, which unfortunately for us is a lot. So I think that's why this type of movie might be a little bit in jeopardy, because we are not able to be scared like we used to be able to. Back in the day, we didn't really talk about it, but a lot of these started as radio dramas.
Sure.
When some people, you probably heard the classic story when some people tuned in and heard War of the Worlds on the radio, and they thought it was real. They thought, DC was being attacked at that moment. No one's going to fall for that these days, just because we're, so much media that we ingest all day long. So
Yeah, and the Snapcast has a good point. You know, I remember the Faces of Death series. I actually went to go see one of those in the movies in the theater because I think the first two were straight to VHS, and you know they used like real footage of either accidents. I remember, you know, a guy falling off the roof in the movie, in the actual movie. I think it was the third one. You know, he committed suicide, and they have this footage, and it's just horrible stuff. And that
Right.
this is back in the in the late '80s that this stuff was happening. So yeah, Faces of Death was kind of a weird chapter in horror because you know it was like real stuff, like you said. People were desensitized. You know, one of the other things that kind of also plays into that, and I'm glad you mentioned that, is you know today's technology in movie making really erases the line between you know fiction and what looks real. I mean, you know, CGI in horror is you know the zombie movies. All the zombie movies are doing it, so you get some really great zombie kills thanks to CGI. You know, our friend Yoshi Vu has worked on a couple. But yeah, it's kind of weird. You know, I've never seen any of the Saw movies. I don't know if I want to kind of have those kind of images in my head. Obviously, you know, growing up in the '80s, I had images of you know Michael Myers stabbing somebody through the eye, but you know you can kind of, I guess even as kids you can kind of tell that it was kind of fake. You had that mindset of this is kind of just a movie, but yeah, the desensitization of violence in real life is definitely something that you have to be careful, especially if you're kind of impressionable these days. But totally, I mean, you know, you're talking about also like something that may seem to be real in the movies, like found footage films. You've got movies like Blair Witch Project, things that might be posing as like something real, which you know back in the day was a really cool thing. Blair Witch obviously won all the awards for the innovation of doing that kind of first. I remember I was in Los Angeles when I started to see the handwritten posters on light posts just down the street, and I'm like, what is this? And it was you know their guerrilla viral marketing you know, locally, which was kind of cool. And I'm like reading all this stuff, and then the movie comes out. I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty damn good.
yeah, some
So
of those advertisements just had the symbol on it that was being
yeah,
used
the
throughout the movie. Um, but you know, I thought that was definitely innovative. I don't remember it winning. It actually did win a bunch of awards.
yeah, it won tons of awards, and obviously it was made cheaply, and
Yeah,
you know it generated so much money. But yeah, that year it came out, it won some major awards for
but
you
then
know
they
being
tried
a
to do
horror
it.
movie.
Yeah, then they tried to do it again, and it's really hard to repeat that sort of magic. Although Blair Witch 2, as far as sequels go, not bad. But yeah, as far as the Saw movies go, I didn't they didn't do anything for me. I couldn't. I tuned in a little bit to. I don't even remember which one it was. But to me, I thought it was violence for the sake of violence, and
Mm.
I mean that might be your thing, but I like a little bit more story with it, and I couldn't make my way through it.
It led to a lot of the torture porn
Yeah.
genre, which I saw. I saw, and then of course I saw the second one, which it fell victim to the stereotype of horror, which the sequels are always awful. And I actually saw Hostel in the theater, and I just was like, it didn't make me sick, but I was like, I don't even understand what the point of this movie is. Who is this for? Why is this entertaining?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that it does go a step too far. I did enjoy the first Saw because it was interesting. It was different, but still, it's not one that I've gone back to revisit. I like the older stuff.
Yeah, Dave Richards. I put a thing up on screen here. Halloween's still my favorite horror movie,
Mm.
and let's see if anybody in the chat has an answer to our horror trivia. regarding Halloween, and I'll say it. How is Michael Myers and Captain Kirk related? Do you guys know? Anybody in the chat? Michael Myers and Captain Kirk. What is the relationship there? What is the relationship there? Chantel seems to know. Anybody in the
Yes.
chat? Brad is either updating or he's frozen. There he is.
I'm just reading. No,
Good mime work.
Good mime work. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, it looks like Frank has it. Frank
Of course.
in the chat. Chantel's like, exactly. So yeah, something I didn't know until, obviously later. But the Captain Kirk mask is painted white, and that is what Michael Myers is wearing.
Mm-hmm.
you were late to that one. You were.
Even I've known that for a while.
Oh no, I'm not saying that I just found out.
Oh, okay. I hope not.
No,
Okay.
no, I've
All
known
right.
that for a while.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
corrected yourself.
No, totally.
It's a shame you.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. You talk about sometimes these movies kind of start to get a little old, and then they parody themselves. What do you guys think of the movies that, like, the comedy movies with like Scream and things like that? They take a lot of these horror tropes, and they flip them on their side, and even Geico commercials with Chainsaw Guy is, with the teenagers that are running away from them, and they see a car off to the distance, and it started, but no, let's hide behind this wall of chainsaws to escape the chainsaw murderer.
That's smart.
So that's smart. That's really smart. Yeah. But yeah, the Scream movies are pretty funny. Parodying movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer and things like that. Again, teen angst. It's all over the place. What's going on there?
Yeah, but Scream, even though it's sort of like that a parody, it stands on its own though. I think as a horror, even though it's got that angle to it. I thought that movie was actually very refreshing, and I think that whole series is pretty fun. Obviously, there's, as Chantal said, it kind of goes down with maybe with each one, but they're still worth watching, and they're still fun. So even though it was could have been self-deprecating in many moments, it still has all those elements there, and I think it's highly entertaining.
It is Wes Craven himself, so it's his baby. So obviously there's still, a love letter aspect to horror. My sister is the opposite of me. She does not like horror at all. And she had actually seen Scream before I did, and she said, "I'm really surprised that you, out of all people that loves horror, that you haven't seen Scream, because to her it is an ode to horror." Yeah, it's, there's that little comedy aspect to it, but I finally watched it, and I personally loved it. Really loved it.
So, Ro, you've made it very clear on many occasions about comedy in your sci-fi.
I'm sorry.
So how about comedy in your horror movies? How acceptable is that?
I think it's more. Yeah, it's. I think it's more acceptable to me in horror than it is in sci-fi. I think.
And why is that, Ro?
You know why? I'm such a proponent in
I'm
like
a purist.
Really. I guess, yeah. I don't know, comedy and sci-fi. I can't do it. Sorry.
He can't even. He doesn't even
the
words.
All right, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. Why is it acceptable in horror movies then?
I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one. Definitely.
Part 2.
Because you need a break from crapping your pants, I would imagine. Can we include Evil Dead? This was what I was talking about at the top of the show. Like, I love the Evil Dead series. Can I include those as horror movies? Because
I do.
Okay, good. Because
definitely.
And I just want to say Bruce Campbell, as got to get that name out there. And he got me on April Fools, and he's a real asshole for it. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he posted a page from a script, from a Doctor Strange script. and it
Oh,
was with him in it. I'm
yes,
like,
I think
so
so.
this lead, and I'm like, dude, I got so like, it was clearly April 1st, and I was like immune to him all day, except for the one from Bruce Campbell that was going to be in a Doctor Strange movie or the TV show, and I was so excited. And like, dude, what day is it? I'm like, God, and so I'm really still mad at Bruce Campbell for that. If that was an April Fool's joke and that was it. But those movies, like the first and the second one, I think have that classic horror feel to them. And the third one, Army of Darkness, that's more
Hmm.
comedy than it is
Yeah.
horror per se. But plenty of comedy, slapstick type comedy. But those movies are hilarious, and the first couple are pretty scary at moments as well.
I thought Zombieland did a good job of mixing
Oh
those
yeah.
two genres. I love Zombieland. That movie was so that movie really blew me away. I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I did.
I can't think of any horror movie that I can rewatch as much as Zombieland. There is no bad time to go back and rewatch Zombieland, whether it's you want to pull up on Netflix or whatever,
Hmm.
or whether it's on TV, even though it's censored. But
Yeah.
I don't know why Woody Harrelson works so well for that, but damn, he is perfect in that movie. And a guy like me can definitely relate to the protagonist, and a lot of us nerds can relate to the protagonist, and I think that's why it's so fun. They got all the cards stacked against them, and the second one still victim to that whole sequel thing, but
Yeah.
still pretty entertaining as well. But I think as far as rewatchability goes, Zombieland's definitely top three for me.
Yeah. I agree.
Would those be categorized as some of your favorite horror flicks? I'll go around and ask everybody. Brad?
Are you gonna start with me? Ain't that
Yeah.
something? So yeah, definitely Zombieland, but the Evil Dead series um, is has to be on top for me.
Cool. Shanti?
Oh, for me, which I'm pretty sure I mentioned in the previous episode, for me it will always be The Exorcist. I just do really love that movie. I have such respect to make a movie like that in 1973. So, um, and I actually recently saw Todd Browning's Freaks, which I can't remember the year. I'm blanking on the year, but I'm pretty sure it was during the 30s. That actually, I really just love the old golden age of Hollywood horror. So that's always, yeah, Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, The Mummy. Yeah. And then, of course, if you want to get a little bit more modern, The Shining, Halloween, like stuff from the 90s and on, I've been a little bit more picky about.
Freaks, is that the movie about circus sideshow
That,
people?
yeah, the actual sideshow
Yeah.
were actually used for the film, and it's a great movie. But if you read some of the trivia on that, it's pretty sad the way that they were treated
Sure.
and stuff on set. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a great movie.
And that reminds me of an old movie that I used to watch. Would sneak up and turn the TV on. There's an old movie called it's like all S's, and it
Hmm.
really freaked the crap out of me as a kid. It was about a sideshow, circus sideshow coming to town, and they had a guy in the back who claimed that he was a snake. And little by little, when people would go back in the back room, he would start to turn into a snake. And the makeup job was so horrific to me as a little kid. Every so often you would see him like do this, and he'd like writhe around on the table, and his face would like stretched out, and they started putting scales on him, and it really freaked me out as a kid. And I always remember because it had such a strange title called maybe I'll look for it
Creepy.
and see if I can kind of get it out of my system. But not that it was my favorite, but it just, you reminded me of that because of Freaks. I grew up really liking the ones that I mentioned, Halloween and Friday the 13th, but Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street are some really great movies. During that decade, I probably didn't go to sleep for days on end. It was really captivating and really, kind of a unique thing. I mean, everybody goes to sleep, everybody dreams. So these are types of topics that, maybe it could happen to me. So, again, my friend Rich and I, we used to chase the neighborhood kids around with Freddy Krueger knives until the police got involved. But that's for another episode.
Yeah, and
Oh my
you know,
God.
Ro, you can remember a few of those Halloweens in the '80s. Like it was pretty much 50% Jason, 50% Freddy running around collecting candy. Like you couldn't go anywhere without. And if you didn't have one of those, you're kind of a geek for not having one.
Right.
But you're talking about those makeup jobs, like and ones that scared the hell out of me is you remember the along the lines of the ones you guys are talking about, the Elephant Man movies.
Oh
Movie
yeah.
from and those makeup jobs that they did for that, like that scared the hell out of me as a kid. And like I don't know what they did back then as far as the makeup goes, but they nailed it as far as scaring the shit out of you. It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously we were talking a little bit about CGI and makeup technology and how that has progressed the genre. But are there any horror movies that either broke the mold or set a standard for the genre that you guys can think of? And we're not, I'm not really into following a lot of genre, like a lot of horror movies, as I am obviously the sci-fi and the Marvel and the Star Wars. But
There's just so many sub genres in
Yeah.
horror. It's like
Right.
I don't even know how to pick that, because it
I
all
feel like
depends what you're into.
I feel like each
Yeah.
decade had its own stepping stone.
Yeah.
I
The first
agree.
ones you think of are Exorcist and Poltergeist.
Right.
From
Right.
the '70s, but you can take that back with the
hmm
Nosferatu movies earlier on, and each one was just basically a step forward on that.
I thought The Sixth Sense to me was I told you I got very, very picky. I mean, I don't know how you consider The Sixth Sense to be horror or not, but I mean, I thought that kind of set a little bit of a new standard in the 90s. I mean, that movie
Yeah.
really, I saw that in the theater with my dad, and that movie blew me away. Blew
I
me
mean,
away. And
yeah,
The Ring
King,
too,
right.
bringing all the Japanese type horror
Sure.
now to the US. I think that's another change that's, been really interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's the king of twist, and twist there.
To me, I think
Definitely.
the best ones are the ones that hold up the most, are the ones where the Venn diagram is the biggest between what you would consider horror and psychological thriller. The ones that just tear your mind up. Like you really can't go back and watch The Sixth Sense. Well, I mean, you can if you want to go back and
But
look at try to pick up.
I get
little
what you're
clues.
saying. You know the ending
Yeah,
already,
you
so
know the ending, but I'm with you. And it's also much harder to keep that sort of thing a secret these days than it was even was 20 something years ago when that came out. But that ending, like it blew you away. Like didn't like couldn't even see that coming the whole time. Like I don't know how you pull that off nowadays.
Yeah.
But I think for a good horror movie it has all those scary aspects, the jump scares and all that. But I think it should mess with your mind just as deeply. And that's how they just the Exorcist movies, the Poltergeist movies, all those, even the Freddy, messing with your dreams. Don't go to sleep because your nightmares are gonna you're gonna die in your sleep because of your nightmares.
Mhm.
So it affects your mind deeply, and that's the ones I think that have lasting value.
I agree.
Absolutely, because there's no better filter than your own brain when it comes to filling the space of storytelling, and whether you're thinking about it and you're kind of connecting the dots internally. It definitely is a lot scarier than having a movie kind of show you something. I think what you think of and how your brain kind of follows through with those thoughts is probably a hell of a lot scarier than just having it told to you. So absolutely.
And Frank in the chat mentioned Alien, and I think we mentioned this a few shows ago. Distinct difference between Alien, the first one, and then Aliens, and then everything thereafter.
Yeah.
The first one is a psychological thriller. The rest are cheap sci-fi, I guess. Still entertaining, but the first one is definitely a psychological thriller.
There was a huge debate, just a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago on
I saw
Twitter.
that.
Is it a horror film or not? I personally think it is. It's sci-fi horror, but I mean, aside from the fact that it's set in space, It is to me a haunted house kind of scenario in space. Everything's dark. You can't see anything. This thing's lingering in the shadows. I'm sorry, it doesn't get any more horrific than that. And then, like you said, after that, it just got more action packed, which is why I did not like Aliens 2. It was such a switch.
It
was okay.
The motto or the theme in space, no one can hear you scream. If that's not a horror, type theme, I don't know
Thank
what
you.
is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got movies like Event Horizon, which was also, very sci-fi. It was a haunted ship. It was basically a haunted house story, told in outer space. So there's like that sci-fi aspect to it, very similar to, Alien. One obviously was, received a lot better than the other, but yeah, absolutely. And Frank, I'll put this up, but A Nightmare on Elm Street, based on a news article that Wes Craven read about a boy who died in his sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean that stuff is is scary. Scary stuff.
Ro, what genre would we consider the original V? I remember when that came out as in the 80s.
The V.
You remember that? Where it was. I mean that movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Like, wasn't expecting that, so I'm not sure.
Wait, are you talking about when the aliens came to Earth to supposedly? Yeah, I didn't really. I think maybe it turned into horror like later when you found out what the plan was, but to me it was always like campy TV sci-fi.
Maybe it's just because of my age, but I remember the woman had a child. And the child was an alien. And,
right. It was a hybrid.
Yeah, and that scared the hell out of me. I don't remember what age I was when I first saw that. I was pretty young, but that was pretty scary.
It was. I do remember the rubber puppet alien being born, and the little tongue, and not as cute as Grogu, but very similar. But yeah,
wasn't ready for that. Little Bradley was not ready for that one.
But yeah, and speaking of crossovers, do you remember what other actor that we've already mentioned? His movie was also in V. Do you remember what other actor, what horror, famous horror actor was in V? But he played kind of like a nerd alien technician in V.
That movie is so far back in my subconscious, I couldn't begin to tell you.
Richard Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger, was in V, which is
he's
really
in a lot more than what people think.
Yeah, definitely.
He's had all the makeup on. That's
yeah. I want to point out real fast because I popped it up. Natalie, Force of Light Entertainment. Hello, Natalie. She has never seen Sixth Sense.
What the?
And there are other movies that I see them. Yeah, there's other movies that I see them posting that. Oh, should we do our first watch of this?
Predator for
I'm
the
like,
first
what
time?
the?
What are you doing? Predator.
Well, I wouldn't say the ending.
Right. Natalie, Michelle, you guys.
No, there's
go
no
watch
spoiler.
it.
Yeah, there's no spoiler alert for the Sixth Sense. I mean, if you were
man.
Natalie, you were literally
Don't
the last
look it
people.
up. Just watch it. Don't look it up. Oh my.
Yeah. Too funny.
I mean, they
funny.
couldn't have those nice thumbnails, the shocked, if they had seen all these movies, though.
That's right. That's true. Yeah.
It's all right, Natalie. We won't hold it against you too much.
Yeah.
Oh my
What are you doing with your lives? Holy crap. Go watch Predator. Go watch Sixth Sense. Come back after you fix yourself.
Right. It's too funny. Yeah, they should we do a rewatch, our first watch of this? I'm like, what?
Oh wow. I'm blown away. I'm genuinely shocked. Shocked by the ending of the movie. Wow.
If they say like first watch of Patriot or something, I'm done. I'm done with Force of Light Entertainment.
Oh wow.
Excellent. Yeah, so Friday the 13th, Halloween, Freddy
How about,
Krueger.
I want to hit on real quick movies being remade, because someone, obviously we've mentioned Stephen King a few times, and The Stand, I feel like The Stand's been remade multiple times.
I think so too, yeah. Now it's on Prime.
Yeah, why? Why do we keep doing that? Why can't we just... I don't think they get better with each remake.
Pet Cemetery.
Yeah.
I think we just watched the
Child's Play. I mean, they brought Child's Play back.
Yeah, they did.
We just
They don't
watched
get
Pet
better.
Cemetery a while ago, the new one, and damn, that was the I don't know. I don't remember the first one being as goofy as the remake.
Hmm.
The remake got like really corny. And again, this all could be, desensitization again. The first time you see a storyline, it's like, oh my god, this like kind of spooky. But yeah, it just got like really corny when.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't know.
tired of remakes.
Maybe I just have rose tinted glasses, but I feel like back then, whenever you want to call it back then, they made movies for the sake of making movies. We talk about like George Lucas making Star Wars as opposed to anybody else making Star Wars. They made the movies that they wanted to make, and if you liked them, you liked them. If you didn't, you didn't. And I
Right.
think too many now they're following polling numbers and
Yeah.
what do the fans want to see, and then they try to make a horror movie or whatever kind of movie that matches that instead of just going out and making a good movie that stands on its own.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Movie making by the numbers is a definite factor. But talking about making movies, I think this would be a good tease. Next week, we're doing another ScarifLive, and I'm bringing in an independent music composer who specializes in horror music, and he's gonna play some tunes for us. But we're gonna talk about how horror music or how music in horror films kind of messes with our brain. So that should be a really good one. I think we're going to do that on the 21st, which is, what is that, Tuesday night?
Wednesday?
Wednesday? Yeah, somewhere
I
there.
think, yeah.
So that should be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, at least Natalie and Force of Light did watch Predator finally. That's good.
Oh, okay, good.
That first movie, stands on its own. I mean, you can almost consider that a horror flick, I think.
Sure.
They're in the woods and just getting picked off one by one. Somebody you can't see but can see you, no matter what you're doing. So
That is one of those movies that I was really pleasantly surprised. It starts out one way and then it goes in a totally different direction. I wasn't expecting that when watching
Right.
when watching Predator the first time. So really, really cool. I like when movies do that, and I don't know. It's you're right. It definitely holds up still. What do you think of all those crossovers, the Alien versus Predator and all those?
Nope.
And I mean, those are definitely cash grabs. And I know the comic books did it first. And, back in the day, they were kind of popular and they decided to kind of jump the shark and do them as films. But I saw one, and one is too much for me.
I mean, I'm about to disagree. I mean, I'm not going to, a lot of those movies are not good. But the idea of a crossover in general, I like, because I'm a sucker for lore and that sort of thing, and if it builds on the lore of a character of a certain species, like spoiler alert for the new Godzilla movie, when they get to Middle Earth or whatever they call it, the caverns in the middle of the earth, and you see these ancient battlegrounds where all the monsters fought each other. Like, that's amazing. And I got a very I was telling our friends at Salty Nerd, I was getting a very Aliens versus Predator vibe from that, seeing how they've been going at it for millennia now, and I thought that was cool. So anything that can build the lore of the species, I'm down for. I just wish the movies were better, because they kind of suck.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Brett. I'm not opposed to a crossover. The problem is I don't know what it is about this genre in particular that it falls victim to sometimes just being completely goofy. And that's how I felt when I was watching Alien versus Predator. And it was the last one that I watched of that. And I said, this is just too ridiculous. I'm not scared. I don't know. I found it kind of boring. I was like, pass. I reject this.
Yeah. Monster Squad. Would you consider that a crossover? Which one is Monster Squad?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Monster Squad is.
Isn't the one that just has like Frankenstein and vampire and Dracula and all that?
Is it?
I don't know. We're gonna we'll use a playbook from the Force of Light Entertainment. I've never seen Monster Squad.
It's actually a movie from 1987.
I feel like I saw that in 1987, but now that who mentioned Monster Squad?
Frank.
Frank, I think you may have given me something to watch because I'm, we're looking at all the movie art here, and that's something I definitely. Oh, is that the one with all the kids? Yeah, I think I remember that one. It's got all the kids in it. Of course, it's an 80s movie, so it has to have the teenagers in it.
Oh, we know somebody that doesn't like kids in movies, right? The salty nerd.
Oh, so did he not like the It remake?
No, we give him shit because he hates Goonies. Exactly.
Look, we all know that Alex is soulless.
That's twice I've been shocked now.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So yeah, Frank was saying So I mean, I think they're all in the same universe. Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman. I don't know. It may be considered a crossover, but I kind of consider all of them from the same monster universe anyway.
And it's too bad that the Universal, cinematic universe didn't pan out. And I actually really liked that Dracula.
Me too.
Was it called Dracula? I can't remember. It was
the one with Bela Lugosi, the original.
No. The new
other
one.
one.
You know how they tried to do. They tried to do kind of like an MCU for monsters. It was Dracula. Then they were going to do the Mummy. Then they were going to do something else. But the Dracula didn't pan out very well. I can't remember.
I think that's called Blade, bro. Blade.
Yeah. Sure.
Which is a classic. Hey, that paved the way for all the movies. So
yeah.
Props to Wesley Snipes.
Very much so. Love that. They got.
That was a tangent. I don't know where that came from,
but yeah, for sure. I love Blade. Definitely. All right. Closing thoughts on horror. What do you guys think? You like the genre? Yes, no? You scared?
If it's done well, I love it. And we need to stop with so many sequels. They really need to stop doing that.
Yep, it's a good one when it holds up over time. The good ones are timeless. Mm-hmm. That's why Alfred Hitchcock, after a dramatic pause, you called him the greatest.
He deserved it. He deserved it.
Yep, Stephen King, whether it's a 90s Stephen King or 1970s, they still hold up. So, and it doesn't matter whether they had CGI or didn't have CGI. It's the ones with a good story and good directing and passionate actors, and those are the ones that are going to stand up over time. So those are the good ones, and they will always be the good ones.
Absolutely. So we got one more trivia before we take off, and I wanted to ask you guys. Let's see if anybody in the chat knows this. Frank seems to be the connoisseur of horror, so maybe he'll know. Yep. The 1979 Nosferatu remake, what does that have to do with The Mandalorian? There's a connection there.
Yeah, I'm glad you were asking the chat because I saw you were going to post that, and I was mad at myself that I have no clue as to what that connection is.
Anybody in the chat? Frank, I'm just going to address Frank because he should know. 1979's Nosferatu remake of the original movie and The Mandalorian. What is the connection?
Well, Natalie's going to do a first watch of Nosferatu, so you can't ask Natalie.
Right. So. Too funny.
Poor Natalie.
I'll give you a hint. Podcasting is a... Was it... Oh, I screwed that one up.
Take two.
A delicate profession?
A delicate, yes. Podcasting is a very complicated profession.
Yeah.
There you go. See, I knew Frank would know.
Oh, yes. Werner Herzog.
Mr. Herzog directed 1979's Nosferatu, and obviously he is the client in Mandalorian. So awesome.
He just directed. He wasn't in that.
He probably was somewhere.
I was
You know
gonna say
how
if
Alfred
Nosferatu
Hitchcock
said,
does
"I
his.
want to see the baby,"
I
that would be
want to
terrifying.
see the baby. Absolutely. But those are our little trivia. Frank again demonstrates his prowess of horror.
A little slow on
love
that
it.
one. I think there might have been some Google involved there, Frank. All right.
There you go. There you go. But everybody in the chat, thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Had a good time talking about horror. And remember to give us a follow and tell a friend about the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. We are everywhere. You pick up your other favorite podcast. I'm actually wearing the Scarif Scuttlebutt t-shirt that was banned from the internet. No more. Friends don't let friends fly X-Wings. We'll see about that. Thanks, Disney. But yeah, absolutely. We have a TeePublic site. Check us out. Our pinned link has all the ways that you can connect with us. And if you want to leave Brad a message or say hello to Chantel, give us a call at 773-234-8659. That is the Scarif Scuttlebutt hotline. Give us a call. Leave us a message. Yeah, Brad, what do you say?
Well, if you like Evil Dead and you love the Goonies, we can be friends. And that's the Scuttlebutt.
That eliminates one person. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Episode 64, Horror Movies.